We are delighted to be joined by a celebrating Republic of Ireland international and fresh winner of the FA Cup with Manchester United, Aoife Mannion. Aoife, how are you?
Oh yeah, thanks for having me on.
What kind of celebrations have you been up to for the last 48 hours?
Obviously, we won the game on Sunday. Had a great evening, a lovely evening. So I've just been resting since then. Afterwards, we've been off for a couple of days and we're back in today. So got this little interview, going to chat to you guys and then head off into the training ground again.
Oh, it's not a little interview. This is big.
I meant in time, not significant. Sorry.
Show us your medal. I think you have it close to you. Is that right?
It's literally like, show us your medal.
I was asked about the medal before I got on, and I didn't know where it was. I was scrambling around for it, but I've got it. Here it is.
Wow. Very nice. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, the second time round, second FA Cup final in a row, a slightly better outcome. Did it matter that you'd been through the pain and the heartbreak of the previous year, or are they totally separate in your mind, even as the game progresses? Does the experience help? Does it hinder? What was that like?
It 100% matters that you've done it before. I don't think it matters so much whether you've won or you've lost, or like the pain or the heartbreak, like you say, but it's more about having been to a final. The final was obviously at Wembley and we had 77,000 people there. No matter how much you try and prepare yourself for that, if you're not used to it, it's actually really overwhelming. Like the day is scorching hot. It's always scorching at Wembley in May. So many fans, and so you almost need to have done it once to then be able to go back again and then properly just play the game and not the occasion, as they say. But a lot of the girls are well used to playing in massive stadiums now. When I first was in the FA Cup final back in 2017, I think we got an attendance of around 30 to 40,000, and at that time that was absolutely incredible. And I remember being so overwhelmed. So it's like each time I go in it, you're a bit more used to it. And so that's what I think put us in good stead, apart from obviously the quality of the players and the girls as well, of course.
Yeah, I was going to say, it was a brilliant performance as well to whip out on FA Cup final day.
Yeah, it was. It was really tense at the start. We had a few good set pieces, some good corners that we feel like we could have scored, but it was proper cagey. We played them a few weeks ago and it was really end-to-end, super transitional, both of us attacking, defending, and it ended 2-2. So then when Ella Toon, or like we call her Toon, he broke that deadlock with an absolute rocket into the stanchion, it kind of fell for us then after that. And maybe that was a little bit of the experience side on our part, sort of playing into kind of our favour, because, you know, Tottenham are a really good side, but we ended up winning the game 4-0, which was just incredible.
Did it feel like a kind of dam burst moment when Ella Toon scores that goal?
Yeah, it did, because as a defender, if a goal like that gets scored against me, you practice all week, you know, against what you're going to expect is going to happen, how you think they're going to play against you, and then you get undone by just a bit of magic and something that is really like unique skill, and not many people can do that. Like, how do you pick yourself up after that? So I think it was quite significant, the way in which he scored it and the quality of the goal. And yeah, it kind of fell for us after that.
Do you feel like the weight of history when you're in a game like this? Just like, I guess we all grew up watching the cup final and playing at that stadium, and just like, what's it actually like? How do you sum up, like, as you say, the nervous, the jitters in the early stages, and that and being on the cusp of creating some sort of history?
That's such a good question. I think if you've been there before a few times, or even you've just been in like massive crowds and stadiums, it does help. It means that you're not as nervous. And then when you're thinking about creating history, for us, a massive one was beating Chelsea in the semi-final. We'd never done that before. And so in a way, we celebrated that win like it almost was our final, because as a team, we'd never beaten them. And so there was like a massive significance on that. And then you just kind of get really locked in. And if anything, the danger is that you don't appreciate what you've done as a team. You're kind of so honed in on trying to get through the game. And I came on at the back end of the game, and I was saying to the girls after, we were obviously 4-0 up at that time. And you know, barring a miracle, it was looking like it was going to go in our favour. And I was saying to the girls, what I was surprised about is they were talking and commentating to me as though we were, you know, defending a 1-0 lead or it was 0-0. So it was almost like people hadn't realised. I think we'd maybe realised on the bench what was happening and the significance. But on that pitch, it was just like a melting pot of emotions, like do this, do that. And in my head, I was thinking, of course I'll do that. But actually, you know, if I picked the ball up and like threw it in the air, at that point, we were still going to probably win the game with a few minutes to go. Defended the 4-0 lead.
Got a good mentality in the side, obviously.
Yeah, a really good mentality. The girls are really, really determined. And actually, there's a few of those girls that have won, you know, the Euro Championships at Wembley. And so they're like, some of the girls are like well versed in taking it all the way. And I think it does make a difference if you've actually, you know, got a gold medal before. And, you know, most of the team haven't. And so the girls are very determined. We let each other know what we think at every single moment and what we expect of each other. And it's like kind of horses for courses, emotions flying, you know, telling each other what we expect and hoping that that's going to be enough to sort of get us over the line.
What's been the reaction within the club? Like, have you guys interacted with any of like the people on the men's side to, I suppose, reflect on this achievement?
Yeah, we had like a family and friends venue afterwards. So obviously all of our family and friends were there and some of the senior management at the club, and that was really nice. Some of the girls speak to the boys and they've been really kind and you know, really nice about it, like sending us messages and, you know, all the good stuff. And so there is that level of like, it's a really nice thing for the whole club and not just the women's team. But to be honest, because we've been off for a couple of days, we've not actually been back into the club since. And so it'd be really nice to kind of hopefully see everybody over the course of the next week and kind of celebrate that a bit more.
You've got one game left in the WSL season, and that's against Chelsea, which could have a significant impact on the destination of the title. I don't know if last night we saw the Spurs fans not wanting to win to give Arsenal victory. If you guys were to beat Chelsea, Man City could end up being champions. What are you going to do?
For us, it's a game. Obviously, there's a massive significance for Chelsea, and then elsewhere in the league, it's, you know, significant for Chelsea because they're, you know, going for the title, and also it's their manager Emma Hayes' last ever game with Chelsea, and that team has been like so dominant in their era. One of the most successful team in sort of English women's football for the last 10 years, maybe. And so, yeah, massive game for them. But for us, it's another game for us. We're hungry because we're at Old Trafford. This is our second game at Old Trafford this year. And so we expect to put on a performance that's going to win us the game. And, you know, other iterations and how that will end up in the league is just not really what we think about at all.
Did you find that, I don't know if you're watching the game last night, did you find it all a bit weird that it was like almost as if Spurs, I don't know, like as a player and a fan, should you not be governed by your team rather than some sort of thoughts about your rival?
I think as a fan, I totally sort of appreciate and resonate with that way of thinking. I'm also like a Formula One fan, so I sort of see it when I'm watching just purely as a fan. I'll see that myself when you want certain teams to do better because it will mean that your team will, you know, win the race, for example. But as a competitor, it's just not really like a factor at all. So I find it sort of funny when kind of that's the way that the chat is going. Because on the inside, that doesn't really come into play. I'm not saying that it doesn't end up going one way or the other, but you zoned in 100% so intent. Like we wouldn't be able to change how we play and change trying to win the game. And so I think it's good chat and it's all a bit of banter and, you know, it's sort of going around, but it's not actually, you know, what it feels like as a player.
What's your, where does the Mannion name come from on your dad's side, actually?
So dad is from a Timon, which is just outside.
I thought it could be Galway. I'm from Galway. So Galway United, Aoife, had the most attendance ever for a women's National League game a couple of weeks ago. And Galway United is a very, very young club on the women's side, nearly 3,000 at a game. And just after you this morning, we're going to have representatives of the Palestinian delegation sort of come over to play Bohemians tonight again in a game in Dalymount. Have you been conscious from the Irish girls, just talking to them, how the League of Ireland has taken off, and how, like, I'm always fascinated by this sense of the idea of a club has almost been lost at the top level of football, because like a club was where like working men went in the 19th century to like have a game at the weekend, and it was like something you did at the weekend. And now like at the top level it's more like about the money aspect to it, whereas it's kind of flipped in the League of Ireland, where the club is actually becoming a community now, because we have a lot of underage teams and because of the growth of the women's game as well.
I guess I can only speak from my experience playing over here, and that experience is just from it going from being an amateur outfit to a professional outfit. And I can see what you say, as you know, the club gets more professional, you get incredible players from different continents, from different countries, and all, you know, all over the place, and players move in and out of the club. You know, year on year, within a few years, the whole team could have like sort of rejuvenated and changed, and that definitely affects an identity of the area and the community. And something that's always fascinated me about, let's say, the Gaelic, with my uncle playing for Mayo, is where you grow up is where you play, and you don't move about, you don't play for a different county just because you've been signed somewhere else, for example. So you know how the feel of sport is in different kind of different rules and regulations is really interesting to me. And then you've said obviously with Galway getting some incredible attendances. I didn't know that actually, and I'm not clued in and zoned into like how the community feel of that club is. But you do get little pockets of clubs that are really special, and it can't be replicated in other places. So it's really good to hear. And I know that in Galway in general, they have incredible grassroots clubs. And when I go over to Ireland, I've got cousins that play in different ones. Kiltulla Pioneers, for example, in Galway. And then Moyne Villa as well. Like I've got sort of family, and I'll go and visit them. They've got incredible 3G pitches, and so I can see why the clubs become like a real community feel. So yeah,
I did a piece with Kieran Cannon, who's obviously stepping down from Fine Gael, and he was one of the pioneers in Kiltulla Pioneers as well, setting up that club. My last question for you though is, who's your uncle, the Mayo connection?
My uncle's Pat Kelly.
Oh, okay, do remember him?
Yeah, in the Gaelic.
Both your folks were born in Ireland, is that right?
Yeah, so mum's from Mayo and dad is from Galway, and they moved over to England maybe 30 years ago now, over to Birmingham to get some work, and then never went back.
To Solihull, is that right?
At the time, it was in a place called Hall Green.
Right.
So dad moved to Birmingham, mum moved to London. They met and then went to Birmingham.
Near the old dog track.
I have heard of the dog track in Birmingham, actually. It's out in, I think, is it Perry Bar?
Yeah. You're probably going over all ground here, but the Irish switch, that was just a normal thing for you to do?
Yeah, it was. I get asked. I love answering this question. I think my accent is obviously like a thick. No matter where I go, I've lived in Manchester for 6 years. It always comes through, the Birmingham accent. So I think people are naturally interested. Like, why are you playing for Ireland now? You don't have the accent. Obviously, they see me and they say, okay, you do look Irish, but what's the connection? And I guess all I can say is that like literally my whole family is Irish. It's where I go on my holidays. It's where I always grew growing up. And so the connection is there, and it's something that I've always been egged on to do by my family. Had a couple of back-to-back ACL injuries, wanted something a bit different when I came back. And then, try to make the switch, I guess.
You're the reverse Jack Grealish, who I think was in your class in school.
Yeah, he was. And he also played Gaelic as well, like in Birmingham. There's like a lot of sort of Gaelic going on. So I was more connected to him through that actually than through school. But yeah, in some of the classes we did actually sit together.
So you played Gaelic growing up as well, and I'm always interested because his dad would have spoken about how it helped him become good at riding tackles and taking the physical side of football, that if you're going to be a tricky winger, you need to be able to. Have you found any benefit from playing Gaelic as a kid?
Yeah, definitely. I think the 1v1 nature of Gaelic is really special because there's no hiding. It's very clear if you're winning your duel or if you're losing it. obviously I know more recently it's got more tactical now, and players will sort of sit a bit more under the ball, and it's a bit more cagey in certain counties anyway. But back then when I was playing it, it was like 1v1s all over the pitch, and so that was really easy for me to just sort of like put into the football. When I was obviously playing, growing up in the grassroots in England. So, yeah.
You've been playing in obviously as a defender, as a fullback, as a right wing back, as a right-sided central defender. Is there a single specific position that you want to be in over the next 3-4 years, or does it matter to you at this point?
It's nice to be asked what I want, actually. Usually players we get told where to go, and that's what we'll do. And to be honest,
the type of coach Jerry is, it's just, I'll delegate, you tell me.
That's fine until everyone wants to be in the same position. So typically I'm a centre back. I play in the back line as a centre back, but I quite like a full back. I like you get a bit more. It's a bit more sort of like 1v1s when you're out wide. And so either or, actually, I will play anywhere, and I'll do whatever really it takes for the team. I know some players feel really strongly about certain positions, and they have every right to. But centre back and full back are sort of variations on the same theme, but slightly different. And at the moment, I've kind of been feeling full back, so I've sort of been enjoying it while it's there.
And it's a big period now for the Republic of Ireland coming up with the back-to-back games. I know obviously you target every game and you really want to get results and wins, but these are the ones that I think that there's two teams with a very similar standard coming up against each other next.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're going to be at the Aviva again. I think it's on the 31st of this month, so we're really, really excited for that. And these next two games will definitely be games that we really want to push for a result. We really want to push for a performance, and a really good performance, and see how far we can go. I think that the games on the last camp were a real sort of like, getting to the level, seeing what the best teams in the world were like, and seeing how we could pitch ourselves against them. Were we too passive? Were we too aggressive? In certain portions of the game, we did different things. I think the best example of that was the England game. The first half, we were really, we were very conservative. And then in the second half, we just sort of went for it a lot more. So it will be interesting now, having had those experiences, to see how we're going to pitch ourselves against Sweden, and see if we can get our first win of this sort of campaign.
Well, listen, enjoy training today. It's going to be nice bringing the cup and the medals in and catching up with everybody. Thanks a million for making the time for us this morning. It's been great.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on. And it isn't a little interview.
It definitely wasn't.
It's the biggest there is, really.
Good stuff, Aoife. Thanks a million. Cheers.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Time